Hi, this is Damien. In today's video, I would like to start a series of videos about Git implementation. The idea would be to create an implementation of a subset of the features that Git has. Um, I guess the motivation is to try to understand how Git work in depth, because that's a tool that we use every day, and I think that's interesting to understand how it works. I also want to try Scala 3. I want to work with hexagonal architecture and try to integrate practices and patterns from DDD. We'll see how it can apply in the future and try to have a TDD approach. So today, and I have a list of chapters, and the first chapter is going to be about Git objects. And today's episode is going to be about hash a blob. So I guess I'm just going to do a bit of presentation about Git object to understand exactly what is a blob and what are the other objects that Git has. So if I unfold that, you can see that here basically we have three types of objects. We have the blobs. The blobs is basically the content of a file. It is stored, so the file name is stored after the hash of the contents. We have then trees, which are used to represent the hierarchy between blobs, very similar to a file system, to a directory, basically. As you can see here that we have the project and SRC here are trees, and the files are blobs. And then we have the commits that we'll talk about later on. In this episode, we are going to see how we're going to hash a blob. So first, I am going to show you a bit in Git, in this same repository, the different objects that we have. Tool terminal. So if I go in the Git repository, and so we have a lot of different files and folders, but we're going to go in objects. Okay. And here we can see that we have hexadecimal numbers. So two hexadecimal numbers that corresponds to the first two hexadecimal number of the hash of the file. So if I try to find here, I'm going to try to find all the files. So if I list find type F, okay, we can see all the objects that we have here. And I can then use the command git cat file, and we are going to end up, like if I take this one for instance, and I need to specify the P to show the content of the object. So this object here, okay, this object is a commit, so it's not the right example. Let's see if we can find a blob. Okay, perfect. So you can see we have a blob. We have the type here, and we have the hash of this file. And this is the file name, obviously. And what I can do now is I can actually copy this hash here and show the file. So that's the content of the file. And this file here, so if you should be in this directory as well. So I can look at 62/1. Okay, so we can see that we have a file corresponding here in this directory. So now let's see a bit about how the hash works. So I'm going to come back in my roots, and I am going to use this command, hash object. So here I'm putting in the console test content. The option N here specify that we don't want to have any trailing line. So you can see that it's stopping here, and otherwise it would add like a return here. So let's say that we just want to have this string. So if then we ask Git to give us the hash of the string, here's the hash of the string. Now what we can do is we can also try to from this string find the hash. So for instance, I'm going to do the same, but instead I'm going to do SHA-SUM with the SHA-1. That's the algorithm that is used in Git is SHA-1. So when I do that, you can see that the hash is actually different from the hash that Git produces. And the reason for that is because the hash of what Git produces is actually the hash of the file, but prefixed by something else. And this prefix is blob, sorry, size of the file, the null character here, and the content of the file. So here, if I try to do blob space, so here we have 12 characters, so this size of the content is 12, and I'm going to do the 0 character. We should hopefully have the same. Okay, so it seems to be corresponding here. You can see that we have the same hash compared to what we had with Git. Okay, so I think we have a base here to start up. I am going to try to code that very very simple approach. I don't want to do anything complicated yet. I just want to have a function that is going to be able to hash like that. So what I have here is basically a project that I generated with Scala new, and I took the Scala tree generator. I just changed from munit to Scala test. But apart from that, we have like the default main, and we also have the spec that I'm going to open on the right. So what I'm going to do is create actually a new file, a new test. For the moment, we're going to put everything here. We are going to change that later on. Hash spec.scala. Okay. It doesn't create the okay class hash spec extends any flat spec with matchers, and I want the should matchers, and I'm going to create here a new file, let's say hash for the moment. I'm going to put here, okay. On this file, we're just going to create a method hash. I'm just going to take a string and return a string. I guess later on we will have something like a byte array when we read from the file system, but for the moment let's live with a string to be consistent with the example that we have here. And so basically what I want here is it should return the hash on hash, and I'm going to put this content here. So and then what I'm going to do is hash and put test content, and test content should be so we said that the hash of test content should be that. Okay, so if I try to run, I'm going to use blob here. If I try to run the test in the root, okay, well obviously we have not implemented. I think if I do that, I should be able to only run the test that I want. Perfect. So I guess the first thing here is to create the SHA1 function. To return a string. And here I'm going to say that it's behavior of hash, and I'm going to say here behavior of SHA1. It should SHA1 content string SHA1 test content. We can use the same here in so and if we go back here, we said that the SHA1 of that SHA1 of the test content should be okay. Should be that. And now I can implement. Well, I'm going to first actually implement SHA1, and I'm going to use the Java message digest for that. I think it's message digest. Okay, yeah. Message digest and get instance of SHA1, I think. Can we? It's a bit annoying. Digest. So what we need to do now, I think, is clear or something like that. Reset. We need to reset it first and then update it with the string that we want. Update str. I think this takes a byte array, so we are going to use the UTF-8 encoding. Actually UTF-8 sorry, it's get bytes, UTF-8, then digest is digest, digest, I think it's digest. So I just checked this digest and it returns a byte array, but we need a string here. So for the moment, I'm just going to do mkstring. Yeah, so the compiler is happy, and we are going to run our test. Let's see. Okay, so we have the first test, obviously, that is still not implemented, but we have this one, so we can see that the output that we have is not quite what we expected, and this is because this is in hexadecimal, and this is in some other format. So to transform the byte array into an hexadecimal string, and what we do is map basically. So do we need to specify that? So we're going to use the format function here that is going to print the bytes into hexadecimal strings. And so if I run the test again, okay, so okay, we can see that's better already. It's just in capital uppercase, so just trying something. I'm not sure it's gonna work. Does it put in lowercase if we do that? It does. Perfect. Okay. So we have our SHA-1 implemented. Perfect. So now let's implement the hash. And we said that the hash is a SHA-1 of blob, sorry, a space SHA-1 dot size. I suspect size the 0 character and the string. Sorry, it's actually not SHA-1.size, it's string.size. So if we run that, we should see, and this is not happy. Should we escape like that? Okay, maybe not. So we have a different hash here, and I am wondering if it's because of that or not. Let's see if we try to show some this. Yeah, it's because, so maybe in Scala we can't have string. What's the problem exactly? Invalid escape. Okay. So I'm just going to extract the prefix and to a concatenation of character. Try to do that. Prefix equals that. And so if I do prefix plus I'm just drawing, but it's not very okay. So we need to use apparently u000. Let's see what happens if we do that. Okay, so it seems to be passing. This is not great. This is a bit annoying. So 0. I'm gonna extract this 0 char, 0 byte either. I'm gonna extract this here. And instead, I wonder if we can just use string interpolation here. So it's gonna be, I'm gonna reuse the prefix directly. And then 0 byte, 0 byte, and the str. Are we passing here? Okay. That's maybe a bit better. Actually, we can get rid of that. That's maybe a bit better now. Let's see. Okay, so the test is still passing. We are pretty happy with that. I am going to stop here for the moment. This is obviously a very simple implementation. There is no architecture whatsoever. We just created the function for the moment. What we want to do now is run it, I guess. So I'm going to call that main. I'm going to remove that. And no, I am going to call this hash. I think, can we have something like that? Let's see. Println args blob. So blob run root, I think. Okay, so I just look at the doc and see that actually we can have even better implementation here. We can just say command, which is a string. Well, no, actually, we are not going to do command. We do command later. What we are here just having one single command. So I'm just going to take as a parameter string, which is be the string to hash, and we are just going to print the hash of the string. Can we do that? Let's see. Root. I'm not sure exactly how we pass parameters here. I guess we can try test content. Okay, let's try that. All right, perfect. And we have the same. Perfect. So we wrote an application that has the same, returns the same object. So that's really good. We can now commit that. So I'm going to create a branch that I'm going to call chapter. It's episode 1. Okay. Implementation of hash. I'm going to say primitive implementation of hash object. Okay. Perfect. So thanks for watching this first episode. This episode was about just hash a blob. So we talked about what is a blob and how it works. Obviously this is just an introduction to Git and to Scala. The implementation that we did has no architecture whatsoever. So in the next episodes, we will see how we can improve this implementation as we are adding more features and see how can this application extend into a better architecture. Thanks very much for looking at that, watching this video. If you have any feedback, I'd be more than happy to hear your feedback in the comments below. And